Good afternoon, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the sharing on 30 years of smartwatches and watchniks on the occasion of the HKTDC Hong Kong Watching Club Fair 2014. This sharing is organized in response to the newly launched wearable tech zone at Salon.te, showcasing the latest smartwatches which are quickly gauging market interests. We are pleased to have invited Mr. Wayne Leung, CEO of Ezio America, to give his presentation, followed by a question and answer section where smartwatches sponsored by the Wearable Tech Zone exhibitors will also be given out. You are encouraged to pay attention to Mr. Leung's presentation in order to win. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big hand to welcome Mr. Leung to start his presentation. Mr. Leung, please.
Well, good evening, everybody. So today's talk and sharing, I'll be doing this in English, and I'll be also doing a Q&A session, also going to be in English, but you may also ask questions in Chinese, so I'll reply you in Chinese as well. Okay, so today's talk, what is the subject? 30 years of smartwatches and what's next. But before I begin, I'd like to introduce you a little bit about myself. So what I do, why am I talking about smartwatches? Well, it's really simple. Look at a watch. Why do people buy watches? They buy watches because they want to have perceived value, and sometimes they buy very expensive watches. People buy very expensive watches for a reason. Because they want to pass it down to their generations, and they want to even to their grandchildrens, and have a more monumental value and try to keep that tradition. Well, I'm actually from a family business, and my grand-uncle is actually in the watch business as well. And my father is in the traditional but fashionable watches. And right now, I stand here, I'm actually a producer for watches, but just a lot smarter. So today, let's talk about what 30 years of smartwatches. Well, right now we're in 2014. Are we in the future, or are we still in the past? Well, look at the setting. I'm a little confused. Why is this setting so traditional and antique, yet we're still living in a very futuristic age. 2014 doesn't seem to be too futuristic to us at the moment, but we don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 6 years, 10 years. So let me refresh your memory a little bit back why there's a 30 years of smartwatches. Because it only started 2 years ago, right? If everybody recalls, it only started about 2 years ago, and how could there be a 30 years? So let me refresh your memory by having the following slides. I'm gonna put my water down. All right, so let's start. All right. I know the screen is a little small, but I'll try my best to let you know. You can see the number there. 1972, Hamilton had a smartwatch. I mean, literally, it's really just a digital watch, right? But why do I call it a smartwatch? It's because when quartz watches came out, back when my granduncle was working on it, during the 70s already, it created a huge hype on digital watches and digital movements, modules. And then big companies already seen these type of opportunities, and they're very interested in trying to see how they can move these type of traditional watches to the next level. So this one, the 72, is one of them. And then remember all the time with the Casio, with the calculator watches? That's also a computer. It's a sophisticated piece of smartwatches back then, back in the 80s. But then, why wasn't it called a smartwatch back then? It could have been a smartwatch, but I guess people thought it wasn't smart enough. So what happened was, let's look at what's next. In the 80s, the Seiko also came out with another smartwatch. Well, it's actually another sort of a calculator watch, but with a little bit more sophisticated functions. It's just like a mini computer. But what does it do? You could probably look it up later. It's called RC1000. So it has like data bank. It has a very little memory in it, and it stores some sort of data. Okay, and then all the way jump to the 90s. Timex Indiglo. In the digital watch world, everybody knows what that was. Timex Indiglo had an Indiglo light that shines, and it was very special already back then that, oh, there was light coming out from a watch. It wasn't a normal LED light. It was actually a whole board on the surface. It was all already illuminating. And then look at the Timex. Back then, Timex also had a watch. Oh, that was Indiglo, sorry. And then year 2000. So year 2000, everybody thought it was, you know, the millennium, and you know, things should happen already then, right? So what did they do? What did the industry do? So IBM wasn't even in the watch industry. So why are they making a smartwatch? Well, back then it was still a computer watch. So actually, they actually did make a computer watch. In the year 2000, IBM made a computer watch. And all the functions was just processing data and simple things that people didn't really need. So remember, you know, all these watches that came out back then, they had a niche, they had something going on, but there was no need, really. I mean, there wasn't a market yet for it. People weren't ready back then. So let's look at that. 2003, there was a Palm and Fossil actually joint venture and had a project together that made a PDA watch. That was a lot smarter. You know, that was actually a handheld device. Back then it was called Palm Pilots, like we called handheld devices. And a lot of people used that back then, and it was starting to get interesting. It helped your life. It helped scheduling. It helped make yourself improve in management, time management, and everything else. Okay, then let's look at 2009. 2009 was actually the year I started this this business. 2008, 2009, and when 2009, LG came out with their first cell phone watch, mobile phone watch, and it was already 3G back then. It was quite advanced, and actually, my brand came out with our phone watches just a few months before them. So what happened when LG came up with their smartwatch? It actually helped me a lot of credibility, and people are starting to understand what's going on. And then 2010, Apple Nano, the iPod Nano 6th generation actually wasn't really a smartwatch, but people thought it would be cool to put on an iPod Nano 6 on their wrist. So brands would automatically come and think of ways how to put a strap onto a Nano, and actually that went quite well. And that actually changed a lot of people's perspective on putting a wearable computer onto your wrist. Okay, so let's look next. Oops, sorry. Okay, so 2011, okay, Moto Active. I was actually the sole distributor for Moto Active in 2001 for Asia. That product was amazing. That product actually had battery life for like 5 days, and it has built-in GPS, and it has a pedometer, it has Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth, and it connected to your phone. And you can actually use a headset that came with it and connect it to your phone and touchscreen and answer, and then it go through your headset. That whole combination was amazing. It also had something called ANT+. ANT+ is like a wireless type of, similar to Bluetooth, and that was connecting to the bicycle cadence sensor and your heart rate monitor belt strap for your chest, and just to monitor your activities and your health and fitness. Another cool thing that actually this watch did, and still yet nobody have ever done, was they, with the heart rate monitor, the computer device, this smartwatch will realize how fast your heartbeat is going to predict, to actually choose the type of music you should be listening. Is that cool or not? So basically you'll be jogging at a pace, maybe it was slow, it will give you a slower tempo type of music. on your, obviously, whatever you put into your database. And then when you want to work harder, work out a lot more, it's starting to give you more. It's starting to increase the tempo, and because it realized your heartbeat is going up. So that was really smart. And then let's look at the next one. 2012, Sony finally came out with their smartwatch 1. They actually had a version before Sony Mobile was still called Sony Ericsson. It was called LiveView. But let's not talk about LiveView and talk about this one. 2012, Sony came up with their first smartwatch called Smartwatch 1. Smartwatch. That wasn't as smart as the Moto Active though.